Hey, it's Kurt from Dale Carter's America. We're here at the March for Our Lives in Kansas City. We're a little bit early, but we got some people here, so let's go see what they have to say.
I'd like to see guns taken out of the hands of people that do not need them, and that includes all guns, but especially the AK automatic rifles that seem to be able to take down people in seconds, mass amounts of people in seconds. And
so, like, what specific rifles do you think should be banned, I guess?
I'd like to see the automatic rifles banned. I know that's a stretch, but I would at least like them taken away from children, and I think 18-year-olds who can't even purchase an alcohol beverage shouldn't be allowed to buy a weapon of war.
Sure. So, what is an automatic rifle? Like, what does that mean exactly?
That means that with every pull of the trigger, it shoots a bullet.
Okay.
So you're just doing this and firing bullets into masses of people.
So, like, every one pull of the trigger, one bullet, that's an automatic rifle?
To me.
Okay.
I'm not I was never trained in the actions of war, so I'm not an expert, but
okay.
Magazines should be limited to magazine size.
So, would that include, like, pistols? Because a lot of common, pistols are semi-automatic, which is what you're describing. So would that include pistols or hunting rifles or other things? Like, would that across the board, anything with that style of action, do you think that all falls into that same category?
I don't know that I'm an expert, but I think it would help eliminate just the ability to get them like this individual that did the Uvalde shooting in one day and walk out with it at 18 years old. The gentleman that shot his doctor that walked in the same day and got an automatic rifle and went and shot at people at the hospital. That's insane to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting. So, I mean, what would you say to people who are concerned about safety? So, like, if let's say that we enact all these laws and it doesn't work, right? And somebody gets a gun and they go to shoot up a school or a hospital or something else. What should we do at that moment to protect those people?
I don't think we're going to eliminate everything, but we're not doing anything to protect these children. And it's happening over and over and over again. It's why we hire our representatives to do this work for us, to find answers to these problems, and they're just simply not, because people are paying them lots of money for their campaigns, and they're being bought and paid for by the corporations that make a lot of money off these events. Because the first thing people do from those organizations is go out and promote people to buy more guns because, oh my gosh, we're in a dangerous situation. Well, that isn't helping. That's just making, I think, the problem worse.
So you don't think that people should be able to defend themselves with the same weapons that criminals are using to commit murder?
Let's take them out of the hands of the criminals first.
I agree, yeah.
Because in this particular case, they had 19 good guys with guns who weren't able to stop one bad guy. One 18-year-old bad guy that was able to walk into a store and get an automatic rifle on the same day.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely pretty telling, I think, that, we had this situation with the cops where we're talking about in Texas, where the cops showed up and they didn't go into the classroom for an extended period of time. So, I mean, there has to be a solution there somewhere, because I think it just shows that we can't necessarily always rely on the cops either to protect people if they're going to just show up and then not do anything.
Why do we have them?
Well, I mean,
they're trained. After Cumbernauld, they were trained. You go in.
Mm-hmm.
You go in
right.
immediately. I'm not I was never trained in the actions of war, so I'm not an expert. But I don't know that I'm an expert.
I agree.
Okay.
Well, it was nice talking to you. Have a good time today. Cheers. It's for a podcast that I do. Local podcast. Yeah. We're covering the news and stuff like that. So we're here at the March for Our Lives in Kansas City. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Doing great.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming out. And I'm just kind of walking around here and seeing, what people are doing here, what they have to say. What's the message that you'd like to share?
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I think it says right there in the Second Amendment, the first clause of it is, in order to keep a well regulated militia, the right to bear arms shall not be nobody's in a militia. There are no militias anymore. So the whole Second Amendment is rendered obsolete.
So do you think that the Second Amendment should be completely repealed?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't think anyone should have any guns whatsoever?
Not necessarily. I think people can be granted the privilege of owning a weapon, a gun. But we also have the privilege of owning cars. But there's a buttload of restrictions and regulations that go along with it. You know, I can't take the shortcut up to West Gillum in my car through the park here. I have to stay on the street. You know, there's all kinds of things that we've accepted with driving. You know, why can't we accept these regulations with guns?
So there are some regulations on guns, right?
But not enough, not nearly enough.
What specific additional regulations or restrictions would you like to see put in place?
Well, I think high-capacity weapons should be regulated. If you're a collector and you really want your bang-bang toy, that's fine, but you're going to have to face some certain harsh regulations in order to keep that.
Okay. How about you, sir? Let's get you in here. Is there anything you'd like to add to what we were just hearing?
I concur. I think the Second Amendment, an amendment that was ratified in the 1700s. We were talking about muskets and bayonets. We're not talking about military-style weapons. It all should be repealed. The Second Amendment needs to be re-ratified and we need to just codify certain things into law. Handguns, fine, but we do not have an inherent right to guns, especially military-style weapons. No one's infringing on the Second Amendment by stating we want background checks. We want mental health checks. Like he said, we have regulations on everything that we do. Driving cars, we're mandated to wear seatbelts. I'm pro-life, and to be pro-life means to be pro-gun. Needs to be pro-gun legislation, excuse me. It needs to be pro-women autonomy, having autonomy over their own body. All of that stuff is pro-life. So I want to see everybody live, especially our children who can't fight for themselves. This is a travesty. I'm over it.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of different and interesting points there. So in terms of like the origin of the Second Amendment, which you kind of alluded to here as well, what would you say to people who would say that like muskets and cannons and things at the time were weapons of war? And would you say that the same argument would apply to the First Amendment? You know, like in the late 1700s, we just had quill and paper. I mean, why would the First Amendment apply to, say, the internet or to social media, but the Second Amendment not apply to modern weapons?
So here's the difference. The First Amendment, it doesn't take lives. The Second Amendment takes lives. That's the inherent difference. The same life that can be taken back in the 1700s can be taken today. Freedom of speech is not going to take a life. Guns will. Now, I know, there's power in your words, okay? But I'd rather much come up against your words than your AR-15.
Well, I mean, do you think that the Second Amendment also protects people's lives?
Absolutely not. Because here's the thing that we hear the most. It takes a good guy to stop a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. How did that work in Uvalde?
Well, there was not really a good guy with a gun because the cops didn't go in there and do anything.
They're supposed to be the good guy, and I'm not here to trash on cops. But just to do a whole 360 and then come back around, that's what the whole defund the police movement is. It's not saying that we want to get rid of police, because all of us need police. We want police. The messaging is horrible. We're just saying change the way we fund the police and put more money into mental health and to more, things that's going to make our neighborhoods peaceful. Okay? So this argument that to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy. You're a bad guy. You're a good guy until you're a bad guy. So how do we determine and have that distinction who the bad guys are? The first thing that they want to say is mental health, mental health, mental health. Well, you're not mental until you take a life, right? So why are we just focusing on mental health when we should be focusing on the root cause, which is guns?
So, I mean, doesn't that kind of prove the point, though, that it does take a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun? Because in that case, nobody was there to stop him. So, like, if the cops had gone in sooner, or, you know, the kid crashed outside of the school and was outside for 12 minutes shooting indiscriminately. If somebody had been there sooner, a good guy with a gun, like an armed civilian or a police officer, or, you know, eventually it was a Border Patrol agent that took him down, wouldn't that have stopped the violence sooner if there was somebody who actually responded in a quick and proper way?
I'm going to push back. Those same good guys with guns,
Hi everyone. My name
they
is
made
Nicole.
excuses
I'm
about
organizing
why they didn't go in. As police officers, they're supposed to run to the problems when we're retreating from the problems. When we have just indiscriminately just the amount of people just trying to turn into the Wild Wild West, how do we know he's a good guy? How does he know I'm a good guy? How do we know this? I'm sorry, I'm not willing to risk any more lives because of the Second Amendment.
Did you have something?
A crowded movie theater where it's dark inside and somebody starts shooting up, and some hero with a gun comes in and starts shooting back at him in a dark movie theater. I mean, they are not trained.
No.
So what should we do then? I mean, should we just sit there and take the bullets? What should we do in that situation? If I'm in a movie theater and someone shows up?
It's a long process. We're going to have to put these restrictions on these guns here. We're going to have to find out who's got them and whether they're staying within the regulations that we're going to impose on them for owning these. Well, they're toys for them. They're basically toys. I mean, that whole nonsense of protecting your home. If I've got a gun stuffed under my bed and somebody comes into my living room to rob me, what am I going to do? Say, hey, I got to go to the bedroom here and get my gun so I can shoot you. It's just unrealistic. All of these scenarios that they're talking about are completely unrealistic.
Well, I think maybe, what would you say to people who would say it's unrealistic to take people's guns? I mean, we have hundreds of millions of guns in this country, and we've already seen, you can already see now with crime statistics and things like that, that many crimes are being committed with illegal guns or committed by felons who shouldn't be having guns in the first place.
And we got to find out those felons who have those guns and take them away from them.
I'm sorry, I disagree with you on that. I disagree with you on that because not every felon is out committing more murders. All right, this young man in Uvalde, he wasn't a felon. He didn't have a criminal record. We make it so easy. It's harder to get a P.O. box in this country than it is to get an AR-15. Make that make sense.
Well, we don't have a constitutional right to a P.O. box.
We don't have a constitutional right to an AR-15.
And because we're not in a well-regulated militia, we don't have a right to bear arms.
Yeah, that was something else that you brought up that I was going to ask you about. So could you define what a well-regulated militia is?
I think the writ, the legal document that defines it is the Constitution. Ergo, the well-regulated part would have to come from the U.S. government.
Well, part of it right now, the well-regulated militia right now is tantamount to our modern-day National Guard.
Standing on.
National Guard, yeah. So I'm sorry, if you want to have your bang bangs and your pew pews, and you want to go out and shoot high capacity weapons, join the military.
Well,
Because
again,
we have more rules in the military for those soldiers who are trained, who accounts for their weapon, who accounts for every bullet.
Exactly.
We have more regulations for our soldiers than we do with the everyday people. Make it make sense.
When I was in the Army, we had an armory. Our battery had an armory. And that's where they kept all the M16s and all the government-issued weapons. There were people who had privately owned weapons, but they were also stored in that armory for a good reason. A soldier coming back from a night on the town all drunked up, and if he had a gun in his locker, he could cause a lot of damage. So they knew this, and they put these weapons in the armory along with the M16s and the M60s and all the other.
So what would you say to, and I'll let you guys go here in a second, thanks again for your time. What would you say to people, I mean, again, looking back on the founding period, you know, like in the Revolutionary War, for example, we did not have a standing army. And the people who fought the Revolutionary War were private citizens with their guns. And if you look at some of the writings and quotes around the Second Amendment at the time that it was formed, there's quotes from people like Thomas Jefferson, George Mason, and others who said that the militia was the people, and that people need to be armed so that if there's a foreign invader, that people can be called to arms by their state or by their locality. I don't know if they would necessarily like the idea of only the government having control over who can have guns and who can't have guns.
That's sort of a loosey-goosey definition of what a militia is.
Right.
The writ that talks about a well-regulated militia is the Constitution, and the people who wrote it is the U.S. government. So the confines of what a well-regulated militia is falls under. Everything else beyond that, so far we've been granting a privilege for people to own
that they didn't
arms.
They didn't earn the right to get that privilege.
Exactly.
They didn't earn that right to get the privilege.
But what about those people that won the Revolutionary War? I mean, they weren't granted it by anyone.
That's the Revolutionary War. Time bringeth about a change.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with the same things we dealt with during the Revolutionary War. Now we have a standing army. Now we have standing armies. Now we have the National Guard. We didn't have all of those things during that time. Now we have a structure that will fight against those things. I am all for people having a gun. I'm all for people going hunting. I'm all for it. Listen, I think that we just need to regulate high capacity weapons. I think the Second Amendment, an amendment that was ratified in the 1700s. We were talking about muskets and bayonets. We're not talking about military style weapons. It all should be repealed. Weapons that's gonna outgun the police. We don't need that in a society that we're supposed to live amongst each other in a free society. We just don't need it.
Slippery slope end. I mean, can I own a nuclear weapon?
Well, you can't now. I mean, that's already illegal. I mean, like we have regulations on guns.
I could use the same argument to own a nuclear weapon.
Well, that would be a question for the people that passed that law, like the I'm drawing a blank, but the 1920s law that banned automatic firearms. Like that's an example of most people private citizens can't own automatic firearms. So, but
many of them do.
Not many. No, I mean you need a Class 3 permit in order to purchase or own an automatic weapon.
But why do we need a Class 3 permit for that, but not for an AR-15?
Well, there's a different functionality. I mean,
the functionality is the same: to kill a mass amount of people. It's the same. To kill a mass amount of people.
So then why should the military have them, or why should the police have them?
First of all, the military is there to protect us. If we believe in this Constitution that we keep bringing up time and time again, then we're going to believe in it. Now, the Constitution over the last few hundred years has been ratified, has been changed. That's why we have all of these amendments. Why is it that we're still living under the Second Amendment from 1778, is it? Why are we still living and giving carte blanche anybody who wants to go out and get pretty much any type of weapon they want to get? Background checks, not a thing. Even though we need stricter background checks. You should not be able to go out and get an AR-15. We did a weapons ban in the 90s, and it brought down crime drastically. Why Congress didn't renew that law, it says a lot. It says a lot. And I'm sick of politicians using the same trope to keep guns because they're just killing us.
And the insane notion that I need my gun to take over the government if they get out of hand. We're talking about a government with a $700 billion budget for arms.
I want to see you take on the government. I want to see you take on the army.
I want to see you with your Glock take on a cruise
Even
missile.
With your AR-15.
I mean, it is sort of a deterrent if you think about it. I mean, you don't need to have a nuke or a bazooka or anything like that. I mean, if even the cops, if they're going to illegally perform a search and seizure on your house, for example, and violate the Fourth Amendment.
And
if they know that the population is armed, they're going to be less likely to do that. Would you agree?
No, because they know the population is armed now, and it's not stopping them right now.
Exactly.
So I'm sorry.
But isn't that an argument for the people to be armed?
No.
To protect themselves?
It's an argument for the cops not to do illegal search and seizures.
But then why should the cops have guns but the people not have guns?
I don't think they should have guns.
Because in this society, we have said that our cops are the good guys.
Yes.
That's what we've said in this society.
England's been getting by for God knows how long without cops carrying.
I mean, I was over in Ireland a decade ago, interacting with their police officers. Not one of them with a gun on their waist. Not one.
and their crime rate is lower than ours.
So
Well,
why
it's,
is it?
it's been going up. They have a lot of stabbings and rapes and all kinds of other stuff happening over there right now.
You know what? Again, I'll go against a knife
Take a knife
any day
anytime before
over a gun,
pull it.
because that knife is not going to take a massive amount of lives. That argument is just
That can
it's just
outrun
dumb.
a knife.
Exactly.
Not a
Exactly.
bullet.
Exactly.
Well, if someone had a knife and you had a gun, you would probably have a better shot.
I wouldn't shoot anybody. For anything.
Well, I'm not going to say I wouldn't shoot anyone, because if my life came to it, my life or your life,
Yeah, but
and I'm going to shoot you.
Amen.
I'd take a shovel to him. I mean,
I'm going to.
You're going to carry a shovel with you around,
No, I'd
walking
grab
around the
what's
street with a
handy,
shovel?
You know, but I'm not walking around with a gun.
Here's my bottom line, and this is why I'm running for the Senate right here in Missouri. I'm tired of the NRA dictating the Second Amendment. I'm tired of the NRA dictating our laws. I'm tired. It's time that we get politicians out and put people in government that's going to actually work for the people.
Okay.
Period.
Do you want to plug your website or anything like that?
Antoine Jennings, I'm running for State Senate, Missouri District 8, which encompasses Eastern Jackson County.
Right on. Well, thanks for your time, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Cheers. I see your big flag here. Are you a teacher?
I am.
What do you teach?
I teach immigrants,
Okay.
refugees.
Right on. So, what are you doing here? What would you like to see happen?
We need to see a change in our gun policies. Yes, we should not be losing children and babies on a regular basis.
And what are some of those changes that you'd like to see happen?
I think it needs to start by raising the age limit to 21 on those assault rifles for sure. And then from there, we need to have stricter background checks.
Okay. What is an assault rifle? Could you tell me that?
I think anything that can fire off multiple rounds in such a short period of time.
So like handguns, semi-automatic handguns.
If it's something that you're not going to take with you hunting, probably would be considered one.
So that would include handguns then?
Probably.
Okay. And so raising the age to 21, I mean, why do you think that we should do that?
One reason, I think that gives a couple years for someone who is considering doing something stupid to maybe change their mind, or for authorities to identify a potential threat. And I think also, as they get older and more mature, especially boys, they might come to their senses and might not do something stupid.
Yeah, I would hope that they wouldn't do something
Exactly,
stupid.
yeah.
I mean, so do you think that people that are 18 maybe aren't mature enough to have the full rights of an adult American?
Most definitely.
So would that apply to driving or voting or other things that people who are 18 can do?
That's a tough one right there. I think it's very hard to lump a whole bunch of different rites of passages together, and I think they probably need to be seen as separate.
So do you think that people that are 18 maybe aren't mature enough to have the full rights of an adult American?
Most definitely.
Okay. Why is that?
Probably because every person's raised differently and mature differently.
So there might be some mature 18-year-olds then that are maybe mature enough to own a firearm. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Okay, right on. So as a teacher, I'm sure that you're concerned about safety of schools and things like that. So what are some things that you think maybe could be done to improve the safety of schools? Like if somebody were to show up to a school with a firearm to cause harm, what could we do to protect the students in that moment?
I haven't really thought about that because every school is designed differently. Some are so out of date that they really need to be remodeled. And I think it really comes down to having those safety committees get together and evaluate their schools individually, see what they need to make it better.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And would that possibly include more security measures or armed school staff or security officers? Would you include that in the calculation potentially, depending on the school, like you said?
I definitely think it depends on where the school is located, whether or not we need more security officers. I think it comes down to the community being more vigilant, especially the people that live right around the school. They know what goes on more so than a lot of the teachers.
Okay, yeah. Right on. Well, thanks for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Cheers.
The vast majority of hate crimes are directed against Black and brown communities, religious minorities, and LGBTQ people. And a whopping 46.9% of all gun-related hate crimes were motivated by racist anti-Black bias. These are all numbers, but what do they really mean? It means that Black, brown, and LGBTQ people are in fear for our lives every single day. This is just a number of the hate crimes and only a fraction of the mass shootings that we've experienced in our country. And I bet we all thought that legislation was gonna happen to end it after Sandy Hook, right? I remember being in the 7th grade and my teachers watching the TV, horrified, and me sitting at my desk thinking, could that happen to me at my school? And yes, it could have.
Well, thanks for watching. I wish we had a little bit more time at the event on Saturday. I had to leave. We only had about 45 minutes there, but I tried to be respectful. I tried to ask probing questions, but as with much of the gun control debate, what I found is that a lot of the people who are advocating for more regulations on guns don't really seem to understand guns themselves, the different types of guns or the regulations that we already have, and don't really have answers for how we should protect people from criminals. Should we carry a shovel? Should we just sit in a movie theater while someone is, shooting up the place? So, but I hope you enjoyed that. There's some things that I would have loved to have gotten to. The fact that 96% of mass shootings that have happened happen in gun-free zones, for example. But like I said, we had limited time, so we made the best of it. But I'm hoping to do this more often, go to rallies and public events and other things and interview some more people and do more videos like that. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff. Tell your friends. And thanks, as always, for tuning in to Dale Carter's America.